Snow was coming down sideways that morning. Big flakes, slow, like somebody shook the whole sky and let it settle wherever. I'd seen a lot of winters, but that one felt thicker. Sound was muffled. Even the highway, half-mile off, was nothing but a low hum under the white. I was 52, joints cracking every time I bent to lace my boots, but that day they cracked louder. Maybe because I just handed in my badge at the freight yard. 27 years of shipping other people's stuff across the country, and all I walked out with was a manila envelope that said COBRA on the flap and a plastic clock they'd engraved wrong. Thanks for 30 years. Close enough, they told me, shaking hands. I smiled, because I was tired of correcting people. The house sat at the end of a road no one bothered to plow before noon. 2 stories, vinyl siding. Basketball hoop bent from the tornado that missed us by a street and a half last spring. I built the porch myself, pine that's already graying. When we moved in, I told my wife it'd hold us till grandkids. She laughed, said I was thinking too far ahead. I wasn't. I just needed a marker to keep walking toward. I parked the Silverado by the mailbox so I wouldn't rut the driveway. Snow hit the windshield and stuck, soft thuds. Wipers struggled. I killed the engine instead of letting them smear it around. I sat there a minute, hand on the key, everything quiet except the heater fan winding down. In the mirror I looked older than yesterday. Not sad, just used. I'd meant to pick up a ham on the way but forgot. The envelope with my health insurance instructions lay on the passenger seat, unopened. I folded it twice and slid it into the glove box. If I didn't see it, maybe the day could keep its shape a little longer. Front walk was powder up to my shins. Normally I'd shovel before anyone woke, but I'd been at HR signing papers at 6 a.m., so the drift was untouched. I liked the sound of my boots punching through. Felt like proof I was still making dents in something. Halfway to the porch I noticed the upstairs bedroom lamp was on. My son's room. He was 16, stayed up late gaming, slept till noon on breaks. Light being on at 9:30 wasn't strange. Still, I paused. The curtain moved like someone had touched it and let go. I shook it off, stomped onto the porch, knocked the crust from my soles, opened the storm door. Inside, the air was warmer than usual, almost humid. Smelled of eucalyptus, her candles, mixed with something sharp, maybe citrus cleaner. She liked surfaces shining. Said dust meant you'd given up. I used to joke about writing my name in the layer on my workbench. She never laughed at that one. Coat off, boots by the mat. I listened. No coffee maker drip, no footsteps upstairs, none from the hallway. Just furnace blowing through the vents, and the faint tick of the clock we got in Gatlinburg, the one carved to look like a black bear carrying the numbers in its paws. My daughter hated it, called it tourist junk. I kept it because it ran on 1 AA and never lost a minute. Kitchen table held 3 bowls. Empty, rinsed, drying on the rack. 1 spoon left out, still wet. Nobody bothered with cereal unless I was gone. I smiled at that, weird thing to make me warm, but it did. I pictured them clumped around the TV, arguing Netflix, letting the milk sog the flakes. Normal. I walked the hallway, dragged a finger along the picture frames. My son's first home run, my daughter at prom in a dress she claimed to hate, until the photos got 100 likes. My wife and me at Lake Michigan, wind tangling her hair, both of us squinting because we'd forgotten sunglasses. Glass under my fingertip was cold. I kept moving. At the stairs I heard a creak from above, like a heel shifting. I opened my mouth to call up, but the word stuck. Not fear, habit. The house had rules. Daytime quiet for homework and naps. Even the dog knew. I took the steps slow, hand sliding the rail we'd stained cherry last fall. Smell of eucalyptus got stronger. Halfway up, another sound. A thud, soft, then a breath that didn't belong to a hallway. I froze, listening. Could have been the vent kicking. Could have been nothing. I reached the landing. Son's door was half open, lamp glows spilling across the carpet. Light flickered once. Maybe bulb loose. Maybe someone bumped it. I cleared my throat. Just noise, so I wouldn't feel like a thief in my own place. No answer. The bathroom door was shut but fan silent. Daughter's room dark, door wide like she always left it. My wife's sewing room, ex-nursery, was latched. She'd picked up quilting during the pandemic, said cutting squares kept her sane while the world flipped. Sometimes I'd peek in and find her asleep over the fabric, needle still threaded in her fingers. I turned toward our bedroom. Not cold. Door gave with a sigh. Inside. Blinds drawn. Bed made. My side crisp, her side dented like she perched there to tie shoes. TV off. Half-empty water glass on the nightstand, lipstick mark. She never used lipstick around the house. Said it stained mugs. I touched the rim. Still damp. I looked at the clock. 9:41. Too early for errands. Grocery didn't open until 10 on snow days. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it. Spam number. Declined. I walked back into the hall, stood outside my son's room. Lamp still on. I pushed the door. It protested. Hinge I'd meant to oil. Inside smelled different. Sweeter, layered over the eucalyptus, almost perfumed. Not my son's spray deodorant kind of scent. Something older. Window was cracked an inch. Snowflakes drifted onto the sill and melted, leaving dark specks. I crossed the room, tapped the lamp base. Light steadied. I picked up the cap from my son's desk, football logo, and flipped it in my hands. Nothing unusual. Except the silence felt loaded, like the seconds before a gun goes off. I turned, looked at the diploma hanging over his bed. Cum laude, small-town high school. Cheap frame I'd leveled with a bubble gauge because that mattered. Under it, bedding was rumpled, but not by teenage tossing. Sheets pulled tight one side, thrown back the other, like two different moods argued in cotton. I shut the window, latched it. Cold leaked around my fingers. Downstairs, the dog scratched the back door. I hadn't noticed him missing. He barked once, impatient. I jogged down, let him in. He shook snow all over the tiles, then circled my boots, whining. I rubbed his neck. Collar was loose. I needed to punch a new hole since he'd slimmed after the vet switched his feed. He looked up, ears flat, worried. Dogs know. I poured kibble, freshened his water, wiped his paws. Outside, snowfall thickened. Plow wouldn't reach side streets till afternoon. I thought about the ham again, decided grilled cheese was fine. I opened the fridge. Milk low, bread heel gone. Sharp cheddar only. I shrugged, set the skillet, buttered slices, watched butter hiss. Ordinary rhythms. I found myself breathing with the sizzle, matching it. When sandwich browned, I sliced it diagonal, plate clink loud in the hush. I ate standing, leaning over the sink like when I was single in a one-room rental. Phone buzzed again, same spam. I let it ring out, then silenced. I rinsed crumbs, set plate in dishwasher that still needed a replacement latch. Wife kept reminding me. I wrote it on the garage whiteboard last month. Never bought the part. I stood a long time, looking through the slider at the backyard. Snow piled on the swing set nobody used now. Chains stiff. The treehouse, boards warped, banner our daughter painted faded to ghost letters. No GIRLs ALOET. Except MLM. I built it weekends, cursing mosquitoes. She handed me nails like a surgeon's assistant, serious. I wanted it to last forever. Wood doesn't. Behind me, the dog growled, low. I turned. He was at the bottom of the stairs, hackles up, staring. I listened. A soft bump. Floorboard, second floor. Could have been house settling under snow weight. Could have been. I walked to the base of the stairs. Dog pressed to my leg, quivering. I scratched his ear. Easy. My voice sounded like someone else's. I climbed again, slower. At the landing, air felt warmer than minutes ago, like someone had showered with door open. I smelled eucalyptus, stronger, and another note beneath. Sweat, maybe, or musk. Not ours. Our bedroom door was still open, but the sewing room latch was turned now. I hadn't touched it. My heartbeat thudded in my ears, but my face stayed calm, the way it did when forklifts screeched inches from my ankles, and the new guys panicked. You learn to keep the surface steady, or you don't last. I set my palm on the sewing room knob. Brass. Slick. It turned without sound. I eased the door inward an inch. Darkness. Curtain drawn. The hum of the space heater she used so fabric wouldn't shrink. I slipped inside. Heater light glowed red, barely enough to outline the shapes. Cutting table, stacked bins, travel case she'd never taken on a trip. Newly bought, tag still dangled from the handle. Something else. 2 mugs on the floor, steam rising. Coffee. Fresh. My stomach tightened. I hadn't brewed any. Dog scratched outside the door, whining. I shut him out. I flicked the overhead. Fluorescent tubes blinked to life. Room snapped bright like an interrogation. I looked around quick, cataloging. Rotary cutter on mat, thread spools, quilt pinned half done. And on the chair, her phone. Screen black, charging. Beside it, a man's watch. Leather strap, face scuffed. Not mine. Not my son's. I touched the watch. Warm. Floorboard creaked behind me. In the hallway, maybe. I killed the light, stepped out, closed the door. Palms sweating now. I heard nothing else. The dog barked sharp downstairs, then yelped like someone shoved him. Silence slammed after. I moved to the top step, but froze. Voices. Low, intent. Not words, tones. A woman's murmur, rising a little, breathy. A man's grunt answering. From my son's room. Lamp still on. Windows still shut. I stood there, pulse banging under my jaw. Thought of the sandwich sitting in my gut. Thought of the ham I didn't buy. Thought of my badge, retirement cake, clock in a box. I didn't walk down. I didn't call out. I leaned against the wall, cheek on the drywall we painted eggshell, despite my saying it would smudge. It smudged. My shoulder hid one gray patch where my daughter had slammed a doorknob years back. I stayed still, listening. Bed springs squeaked, slow. A voice, hers, caught in the throat, then clear, instructing. His voice, lower, obeying. Sound of skin meeting skin, steady, practiced. Heat crawled up my neck. Not anger yet, just shock that anything could happen in that room, while snow kept falling outside, and the heater kept humming a floor away. I turned the watch over in my hand. Backplate engraved. 4 miles yet to travel. I didn't know the handwriting, but I knew the sentiment. Cheap poetry passed at retirement dinners, midnight rest stops, gas station keycanes. I slipped the watch into my pocket. The lamplight under the door flickered once more, rhythm broken, then steadied. Footsteps shifted. Voices dipped. Her laugh. Soft, private. I knew that laugh. I'd heard it on the couch when kids were asleep, and we whispered plans about Arizona someday. I didn't go in. Not then. I backed away to the stair rail, holding it, feeling the varnish I'd brushed on. My knuckles were white. I watched the hallway like it was a screen showing somebody else's movie. The door never opened. They had no idea I was there. Or maybe they did, and didn't care. Hard to decide which burnt worse. I went downstairs. Dog lay under the table, tail tucked. I stroked him once. He flinched. I filled his bowl again, though he hadn't finished. Routine helps dogs. Helps men, too. I opened the pantry, grabbed the bag of road salt, stepped out onto the porch. Snow was ankle-deep now. I started spreading salt in even arcs, methodical. Every swing of my arm was measured, controlled, like loading pallets. Wind bit my face. I didn't wipe the snow from my beard. I salted the walkway, the steps, the drive. Took longer than needed, but I covered every inch until the bag was empty. Inside, furnace clicked, blew warm. My gloves dripped meltwater. I hung them. I stared at the ceiling drywall where a faint thud traveled again, muffled by insulation. I checked the clock. 10:12. I pictured them upstairs, still moving, rolling, laughing maybe. I imagined the lamp glow brushing the diploma I'd hung. I wondered if the glass reflected any of it back at them. I walked to the garage, flipped the light. Tools on pegboard, snowblower asleep. I grabbed the breaker map taped by the door, ran a finger to Maine. It was circled in red. Last time I'd shut power was 4th of July. Kids dared each other to sit in pitch black and tell ghost stories. That had been funny then. I memorized the placement, peeled the map down, folded it, stuck it in my flannel pocket. I stood there another minute, breathing sawdust and gasoline. The air smelled honest, at least. Wood, oil, metal. Things that do what they say. Snow slid off the roof with a dull hump. I thought about the day stretching ahead. Empty now. No shift. No time clock. Just hours. A man can fill them any way he wants. Most ways hurt. I pulled the garage cord. Door rumbled shut, locking me in the half-dark. I rested my forehead against the cool steel panel, eyes closed, listening to the distant thump upstairs, still faintly reaching even down here. It was steady, predictable, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. I stayed there until the sound blurred into the hum of the furnace and the wind and my own pulse, all of it mixing until it was one long low note. Then I opened my eyes, straightened, and went to the breaker box. I flicked the main switch halfway, paused, hand hovering. I left it on. For the moment. Walked back into the house proper, boots echoing on concrete, then carpet. I stood at the bottom of the stairs again, looking up into the dim hall. Snowlight filtered through the transom, painting the walls gray. I took a breath. Another. My chest felt too big for the bones around it, like something inside was pushing outward, looking for a crack. I thought of the clock upstairs, the one carved like a bear. Always on time. Always ticking. It would tick through this, too. Most things do. I went to the sink, ran cold water, let it pour over my wrists until they numbed. When I shut the tap, the house was silent. No voices, no creak. Just the quiet after you decide nothing will be the same, even if nobody else knows yet. I dried my hands on the dish towel she embroidered last Thanksgiving. Little orange leaves crooked on the edge. I folded the towel neat, set it back. Then I sat at the kitchen table, chair facing the stairs, and waited for whatever came down them first. The chair creaked every time I shifted, so I tried not to move. I could hear the furnace, the clock, the dog licking his paw under the table. Nothing else. 10 minutes. Maybe 15. Long enough for the coffee upstairs to cool. Long enough for two people to pull clothes back on if they felt hurried. Nobody came down. The silence started to buzz, the way fluorescent lights do when you're alone in a warehouse at midnight. I kept my eyes on the stairwell, hand flat on the table, palm sweating against the wood grain I'd sanded myself. While I waited, my head did what heads do. Ran backward, looking for clues I'd skipped. First one was 2 months earlier, Tuesday night. She came home smelling like hotel soap. We lived 20 miles from a hotel. I hugged her, felt the starch in her blouse, asked how the Chamber of Commerce mixer went. Boring, she said, stepping away before I could kiss her. She never cared about lipstick on my chin. But that night she turned her face, went straight to the laundry room, changed everything head to toe, even earrings. I noticed and told myself it was nerves. Public speaking rattled her. Still, I dug the travel-sized Dove out of the bathroom trash later. Logo said COURTWARD by Marriott, Knoxville. Mixer had been downtown, not Knoxville. I shrugged it off. People shove freebies into purses. No crime. Week after that she started jogging at 5 a.m. January's no time to start running, but she bought neon shoes, reflective vest, new earbuds. I offered to tag along. She smiled thin, said she needed headspace. Doctor said cardio would help migraines. Fair enough. Except I'd never seen a migraine put color in a woman's cheeks the way running did. She would burst through the door at 6, breathing hard, eyes bright, whole house smelling of winter air and something peppery, like men's deodorant. She showered fast, left the bathroom fan rattling 20 minutes, steam rolling out under the door. One Saturday I got up early, thought I'd surprise her with hot coffee when she came back. She never left. Shoes sat by the bench. Mud from 2 days prior still flaked on the soles. She appeared from the basement instead, hair damp, claiming she'd done yoga. We don't own a mat. I stared at her socks, old pair, heel worn thin, and said nothing. She kissed my cheek, stung of mouthwash, asked if I could pick up milk. I went to the store and wondered why anyone would do yoga in wool socks on a concrete floor. Phone habits changed next. She used to leave it anywhere: kitchen counter, bathroom, arm of the couch balanced like a tightrope walker. Suddenly, it was glued to her palm, screen down. She turned off key clicks, disabled the lock sound, silenced everything but favorites, a list that no longer included me. I found that out by accident. I rang while she was in the shower, heard my own tone echo downstairs from her purse, instead of the normal bathroom speaker blast. She came running when it stopped, hair dripping, phone clutched like a relic. She checked the log, saw my name, exhaled relief, told me the ringer switch had flipped. I nodded. Ringer switches rarely flip themselves. Bank voicemail came next. Mr. Cooper, just verifying the wire to Vanguard went through. Call if that wasn't you. I replayed it twice, wrote the amount on a sticky note. 5,000. Not life-ending but not pocket change. She said she was moving rainy day cash to an index fund. I said I'd sign the form. She waved it off, said online signatures were legal now. I left it. I shouldn't have. Kids notice things too. But sideways. My daughter asked why Mom kept calling her sweetheart in text when she never used pet names. My son said she promised driving lessons and forgot twice. Small cuts add up if you keep walking into the blade. Every oddity had an explanation, and every explanation sounded almost plausible. Almost is enough when you've built a marriage on giving benefit of the doubt. I collected suspicions like loose screws on a workbench, put them in a jar, told myself I'd figure out where they belonged later. The jar spilled last Thursday at 3:07 p.m. I was eating vending machine peanuts in the break room, counting down 3 shifts left till I quit. Phone buzzed, text from her. Running late, picking up furniture with Susan. Love you. Okay. 10 minutes later, the plant manager called me to the dock. A shipment from Ethan Allen, high-end stuff. Somebody botched the paperwork. The driver was a kid, maybe 22, tattoos fresh. Truck still smelled of factory plastic. He handed me the manifest. First customer on the list, my wife. 2 wingback chairs delivered to our address at 1:45 p.m. Signer. CO pair/Julia. Susan's nowhere on the sheet. I thanked him, initialed, walked back to the break room, stared at my phone. No missed calls, no new texts. That night the chairs were in the garage, wrapped in blankets. She said they were a surprise for my retirement. Couldn't let me see them before she reupholstered. I traced the shipping label with my thumb. Delivery timestamp matched the minute she claimed to be at the mall with Susan. She was chopping onions, eyes teary. Could have been the knife. Could have been guilt. I kissed her head, smelled hotel soap again, kept my mouth shut. I started taking mental photos after that. Timestamps, smells, receipts in the trash. People think evidence is loud. Mostly it's whispers if you know how to listen. Monday, the dog came back from his walk limping. She said he'd tangled the leash, sprained a paw. Vet said it looked more like a door had caught him. Front pads scraped raw, back legs fine. Who slams a door on a leash? Someone hurrying a dog into a car maybe, forgetting the front half isn't clear before they slam. Dog wouldn't go near her the rest of the day. Sat by me, nose buried in my jeans, shaking. Tuesday, 2 days before my last shift, I got the stomach flu. Woke at dawn, room spinning. Called in sick. Passed out on the couch. At 11, I heard her whispering, front door open. I cracked an eye, saw a UPS guy handing her a box. She signed quick, closed the door soft, tiptoed past me. I caught the label, Orlando Resort and Spa. She headed upstairs with it. When she came down, her hair was pulled back, cheeks flushed. Told me to try ginger ale for the nausea. She'd been gone 6 minutes. Long time to stash a box. I asked where it went. She said pantry. I checked after she left for errands. Nothing but cereal and canned soup. That box kept me awake at night. I pictured it under floorboards or behind quilt squares, a secret ready to burst open like a jack-in-the-box and laugh in my face. But I didn't search. Something in me wanted the truth to stay half visible. Once it snapped into focus, I'd have to do something. Doing something is harder than collecting maybe somethings. Wednesday, my last day of the yard. She texted mid-shift. Proud of you. Dinner at 7. Heart emoji. I thumb-typed, love you. Deleted it, sent thumbs up instead. She replied question mark. I pocketed the phone. Tightened a strap on the load. Let the forklift honk behind me until the driver cursed. Couldn't hear him over the pounding in my ears. When I clocked out, the foreman slapped my back. Told me to enjoy early retirement. Early. That's funny. 52's not early in a place where men blow discs at 45 and limp to 60. I took the plastic clock, waved goodbye, drove home through sleet, windshield wipers crying like violins. She wasn't there. Note on the counter. Grabbing Alfredo sauce. Be right back. Alfredo sauce isn't a grocery run. It's a 2-aisle detour you text the kids to fetch. I stared at the handwriting. Her loops were wide, confident, nothing of a woman lying. I poured myself iced tea, waited. 45 minutes later she came in, cheeks bright, hair damp though the rain had stopped. She kissed me quick, smelled of peppermint gum, masking something heavier. I asked for the sauce. She held up a bag. Glass jar clinked. She'd remembered. She hustled to the kitchen, started boiling water. I watched the pot, listened to bubbles slap the lid, waited for her to meet my eyes. She never did. We ate in. She breathed steady beside me, hand on my chest like always. Only difference was the hand felt lighter, tentative, like she was holding a bird that might peck her if she pressed too hard. At 3 a.m. her phone buzzed. She jerked, rolled away, screen glow painting the sheets. I pretended to snore. She slid out of bed, padded to the bathroom. 30 seconds later the toilet flushed, faucet ran. She came back, phone dark, slipped under the quilt without touching me. I kept my breathing fake slow until her shoulders relaxed. Morning of the snow, I rose early, found her downstairs packing lunches. Rare gesture since the kids discovered cafeteria burritos. She said she felt nostalgic, wanted to spoil them. Bread heel in one sandwich, crust in the other. I watched her tuck notes into the bags. Little hearts drawn next to, have a great day. Not her handwriting. The loops were smaller, rushed, like she was copying something from memory and got the size wrong. I wanted to ask who taught her new loops, but the dog needed out and the coffee beeped. Kids left. She kissed me, tasted of cinnamon. Said the roads were bad. She'd work from home. I told her HR called. I had to sign exit paperwork. She smiled too bright, wished me luck, slapped my rear like we were newlyweds. I drove off, circled the block, parked at the corner behind the maple tree, engine running. Watched the house. 5 minutes 10. The black SUV pulled up, commercial plates, salt spray on the fenders. Guy in uniform stepped out, not UPS, not FedEx. Some private service maybe. He carried a garment bag and a cardboard box. She opened the door before he knocked. Took both, tipped him. He left. She shut the door, lights dimmed. I stayed another half hour, hands white-knuckled on the steering wheel. Then drove to HR, signed the misspelled plaque, shook hands, thanked everyone for years of whatever. I could have told them I wasn't coming back Monday anyway. but they were busy planning cake. On the way home, I passed the SUV again, headed the other direction. Same driver, windows down despite snow, whistling. He glanced at me, didn't register. I memorized the company logo on the door. Swift Courier. I Googled later. Same outfit the country club uses to rush deliver sets of personalized golf balls. I walked in the house noon sharp. She was upstairs. Music on low, something with a beat, not her usual folk playlists. I called up. She answered breathless. Said treadmill. We don't own one. I said okay, made a sandwich, ate alone. Half-hour later she came down, hair towel dried, cheeks glowing like she'd caught sunrise in a bottle. I asked how far she'd run. 5 miles, she said, not winded. I nodded, pressed a kiss to her temple. Sweat tasted sweet, chemical, not like sweat at all. I took the plates, rinsed them. She lingered near the fridge, opening and closing it, arranging condiments. Finally, she said she needed a nap, headache starting. I told her I'd pick up the kids. She brightened. Said she'd appreciate that. I left, sat in the truck at the end of the driveway, watched the bedroom blinds. They stayed closed. Kids piled in at 3:30, chatter about a snowball fight. I forced smiles, asked about homework. My daughter said Mom promised hot chocolate when they got home. Promised, not maybe. I asked when Mom said that. Texted me first period, she answered. Anxiety ticked my ribs. Who sends hot chocolate texts before breakfast unless they're buying time? Back home, no cocoa smell. House silent, lights off. I sent kids to change, climbed the stairs. Master bedroom door shut. I knocked soft, no answer. I opened it. Room empty, window cracked, curtain drifting. I checked the closet. Garment bag from Swift Courier hung crooked, zipper open. Inside, red dress, tags off, receipt in the pocket. Ballroom catering deposit, Orlando. Our anniversary isn't till August. I slid the door shut, heart hollow. I found her in the sewing room, curled on the futon, phone in hand, eyes red. She looked at me like I'd caught her stealing silverware. Said the migraine hit hard, needed dark. I sat beside her, rubbed her temples, whispered I'd make soup. She let me. Her pulse thudded under my fingers, faster than the lie she told. That was last night. I slept on the couch, told her I didn't want to jostle her headache. At 2 a.m. I heard floorboards creak above. Voices hushed. I stared at the ceiling, counted each muffled laugh. The dog whined from the laundry room, scratching to be let out. I stayed where I was, hands folded on my chest, waiting for dawn. Dawn came. Snow started. I brewed coffee, left the pot full. She drank half a cup, said she had calls, needed privacy. Kissed my cheek like always, walked upstairs with her mug. I watched her go, watched my old life climb the steps and disappear behind a door. Then I got in the truck, drove to HR, signed away the last tether to normal. Came back, walked up the salted path, opened the door, and found the house breathing someone else's breath. Now I was at the table, feet planted, eyes fixed on the stairs. Something shifted overhead. Closet door maybe. A clack of a hanger. Still, nobody came down. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Right away it buzzed again. Same number. I grabbed it, thumb hovered, hit answer. Silence first, then a low voice, male, deliberate. Mr. Cooper. I said yes. This is First National Fraud Department. Need to verify recent transactions on your joint account. My stomach iced. He read amounts I'd never spent. Airfare, resort, jewelry store in Tampa. Dates matched every time she claimed migraines or errands. Those weren't me, I said. Understood. We'll freeze the card until resolved. You may want a police report. I thanked him, hung up, laid the phone beside the salt-stained gloves. I stared at the display until it dimmed. Then I looked back at the stairs, listened hard. A floorboard squealed. Footsteps approached the landing. The lamp glow swallowed the hallway as a shadow crossed. I waited, heartbeat steady now, like a man counting seconds before detonation. I knew the pattern by then. First the quiet, then the crack. And still, part of me prayed it was all a wrong number and a pair of bad coincidences walking toward me in her slippers. I knew better. But praying keeps your hands from shaking until the truth steps into the light and asks if you're ready to see its face. I stood when I heard the board groan. Not loud, more like a breath the house had been holding. I lifted the chair with one hand, set it aside, moved to the bottom step. Another creak, closer to the top. Weight shifting. I didn't call out. If I said her name and she answered alone, maybe I'd let myself believe whatever excuse came next. I needed the truth to walk down the stairs in its own shoes. But the steps stayed empty. The noise drifted the other way, back toward my son's room. Hinge squeaked. Quick. Then hush again. A man clearing his throat. Soft. Water running in the hall bath. 2 seconds. Shut off. Whisper. Laugh. The kind of laugh people make when they can't use words because words are evidence. My palms were slick. I wiped them on my jeans and started up. Halfway, I stopped under the skylight. Snow glows spilled across the rail, bright enough to see dust flecks float. I watched them tumble. No gravity, thinking it was the last quiet thing I might witness in this house. Then I climbed the rest of the way. Hall carpet muted my steps. My heart, though, no muting that. It thudded like a door slammed in time with my pulse. I passed the master bedroom. Still neat. Past the sewing room. Door shut now, heater drone gone. I faced the door with the lamp glow sneaking out beneath. Son's diploma hung straight as ever. Glass mirrored the hallway, caught me in it. Older man, shoulders round, eyes too sharp for a face that tired. I put one fingertip to the frame, felt it shake because my hand was shaking. I dropped my arm, curled my fist once, opened it. Then I pressed the latch. Warmth rolled out first. Heavy, breathy. My brain cataloged details the way it had cataloged freight codes. Lamp on nightstand, shade tilted. Winter coat tossed over desk chair. Window cracked 1/2 inch, letting snowflakes drift and melt on hardwood. 2 wine glasses on the dresser. Lipstick twin rings. My son's comforter on the floor like somebody kicked it hard. And the bed. My wife on top, knees planting trenches in the mattress, hair swinging, head tossed back. Under her, a man in a dark polo, arms banded around her waist, face gone red from effort and surprise because he had finally heard the latch click. They froze in the same second, like a paused film. I smelled sweat and candle wax, eucalyptus half burned. No one spoke for 3 breaths. She looked over her shoulder at me. Not startled. Calm, even. That calm cut more than an apology would have. She tucked hair behind her ear as if tying it back for a chore, then said, voice steady, "You're right on time. Watch how it's done." Driver, had to be the courier, same build, made a noise halfway between groan and plea. She didn't move off him. She just stared at me, chin raised, daring me to speak first. I didn't. I stepped inside. Carpet muffled the sound, but they flinched anyway. I walked to the dresser, picked up the wine bottle. Label cheap, screw cap, and set it down again because my hand was steady now, and I wanted it to stay steady. I looked at the window, watched 2 flakes land and die on the sill. I took that picture and stored it because I'd need a calm place later. Finally I spoke. Voice low, even. "He can leave now." She smiled, small. "Can he?" I turned to the man. His eyes flicked around for clothes, for exit, for words. I pointed at the floor. "Pants. Shoes. Go." She slid off him like slipping out of a coat. Sheets stuck to her thigh. She peeled them slow, enjoying the sound. He scrambled, tripped on the comforter, yanked jeans up without underwear. Belt buckle jingled like sleigh bells. I waited. He kept his head down. No apology, no defense. When he reached the door he paused, maybe to mutter sorry, maybe to beg. I spat once, short, just enough to hit the carpet by his boot. "Now live with that," I said. He lurched past me into the hall, footsteps pounding downstairs. Front door opened, slammed. Silence came back thicker than before. She picked up a t-shirt, my son's school logo, and wiped sweat from her face with it, then tossed it in the hamper. She stood there naked like it was her own bathroom. "Feel better?" she asked. I tilted my head. "Do you?" She shrugged, reached for the wine, poured a glass, sipped. "I feel awake." She looked at me over the rim. "You look tired." I watched her throat move as she swallowed. I noticed the necklace, one I'd never seen. Tiny silver key. I almost asked where she got it, then realized it didn't matter. She set the glass down, wiped her mouth with her thumb. "Say something," she whispered, a hint of impatience, like a kid waiting for a grade. I did. I said, "That's all." She laughed, short. "You won't even yell." God, that figures. I let the word sit. Then I backed to the doorway. "Put something on," I said. "Kids'll be home soon." She raised both arms in a mock stretch. "Maybe I won't." I didn't answer. I walked down the hallway, felt the floor steady under me, felt each board I'd nailed squeak like it always did. At the landing I looked back once. She hadn't followed. She stood by the bed, one knee on the mattress like she was considering getting back in to finish where they left off. I went downstairs. The dog sat by the front door, ears flat, eyes rolling toward the kitchen. I opened the door, let him dash into the yard. Snow swallowed his paws. He bounded away, shaking terrified energy off into the drifts. I shut the door, locked it. Then I moved. Not hurried. Exact. I pulled on my coat, slipped boots, went to the fuse box in the mudroom. Main breaker. Off. House side. Lights died. Furnace fan whirred down. Refrigerator clicked quiet. I set the breaker tag in my shirt pocket. Router sat on the hallway console. I unplugged it, slipped it into a grocery bag. Phone's next. Landline base yanked from wall. Cords coiled. My wife's phone charger still upstairs. I'd deal with that later. Bank cards lived in a ceramic bowl by the fridge. I fished hers. Mine. Joint debit. Line of credit. I took the shears from the junk drawer, slid each card in, and cut across the chip. Metal clanged on tile. I scooped the halves into the bag with the router. Her purse hung on the coat rack. I emptied it onto the table. Makeup bag, wallet, 2 receipts from Florida toll booths, spare keys. I pocketed the keys, left the rest. Passport and birth certificate were in the fire safe in the office closet. Combination was our wedding date. I opened it, removed her folder, shut the door, spun the dial to 0. Office shredder hummed as I fed each utility bill with her name, each insurance statement. The whine echoed through the unpowered house like mosquitoes in summer. When the bin filled, I stomped the strips down and kept going until their presence was confetti. I carried the bag and folder to the garage, set them on the workbench. Snow filtered through the single-pane window, dusting the vise. I locked the interior door, pocketed the key. My breath fogged in the cold. Back inside, silence sat heavy. She hadn't come down. Maybe she was dressing. Maybe she was crying. Maybe calling the driver on whatever backup phone she'd hidden. Good. I needed the upstairs quiet. I climbed again, slower, feeling each tread. At the top, her voice slipped from my son's room. Soft, coaxing. "Can't stay dark. Breaker's stuck," she said. Pause. She must have thought the driver was still in the house. Another pause, then her voice hard. "Fine. Then wait in the car." Floorboard creaked. She stormed into the hall, robe cinched tight, phone glowing in her hand. She saw me by the sewing room door. "Power's out," she said. Sarcasm thick. "You want to fix that?" "No," I said. "You'll want to follow me." She folded arms. "I'm not leaving." "Suit yourself." I entered the sewing room. "What are you doing?" she called, steps quick behind me. I opened her tall fabric cabinet, reached behind bolts of cotton, found the package from Orlando, the one I'd never looked for until now. Pulled it out, set it on the cutting table. Cardboard soft, edges bruised. I slit the tape with her rotary cutter. Inside, pair of Mickey and Minnie Mouse ear caps, both adult size. Matching t-shirts, his and yours in red script. Photo voucher for Magic Kingdom, 2 park passes dated next month. Week I'd planned to start repairing the porch railing. Envelope of cash, hundreds crisp, bank strap marked with yesterday's date. Behind me, she exhaled like a gut punch. I turned. She was pale even in robe, hand on the doorframe. I guess migraines get better at Disney, I said. She opened her mouth, closed it. Pulse hammered in her neck. For once, no ready line. I left the box, walked past her into the hall. Collect your things, I said. Kids home in 20. She followed. We need to talk, she snapped. My boots thudded stairs. We are. At the kitchen, I dropped keys, router, phones into the sink. She hovered at the table, ringing robe belt. This is insane, she said. You can't just cut power and... I turned off the dishwasher valve under the sink, yanked the plug. Water inside gurgled to silence. I straightened, faced her. Driver's gone, I said. Cards dead, phone dead, power dead. That leaves talking. Start. Her lips parted, trembled, firmed. She tried indignation first. You've lost your mind. I waited. She tried pity. The job, the stress. I said nothing. Then she tried honesty's cousin. Confession trimmed for sympathy. I was lonely. I tilted my head. She burst. Words tumbled. Excuses about years, distance. Me working nights, her needing to feel something. Sentences overlapped, eyes shiny but dry. While she poured, I lifted the coffee pot. Poured 2 mugs though burners were out. Lukewarm. I pushed one toward her. She didn't notice. When her voice cracked into silence, I spoke. Kids will be here. You decide what they hear first, my version or yours. Tears finally came, not for regret, for losing control of the story. She whispered, "Don't do this." You did. My voice flat as linoleum. She stepped closer, reaching. I backed away 1 pace, enough. She withdrew her hand like touching a flame. She looked around the dark kitchen. Fridge light dead, clock dark, house humming nothing. World she'd curated unplugged in minutes. I'll pack, she said small. Good. I pointed to the stairs. Start in the guest room. Leave the kids' things. She walked away, shoulders hunched, robe trailing. I set my mug down. Hand didn't shake. While she packed, I restored power. Needed heat for the kids. Furnace kicked, house breathed again. I replugged router but swapped the password so only my devices could connect. Left her clothes in the dryer, unstarted. She could take them wet. 15 minutes later, minivan headlights swung across the living room. Kids burst in, cheeks red, throwing backpacks, shouting snowball stories. I met them, bathroom fan still rattling somewhere upstairs where she hid tears. I knelt, hugged them, breath catching when my daughter asked why lights flickered earlier. Breaker slipped, I said. Fixed now. They believed me. I'd fixed everything their whole lives. I sent them to change. Then I walked to the foot of the stairs, called her name calm but firm. She came down clutching a duffel and nothing else. Eyes puffy, mouth flat. We stood like strangers in an airport, waiting to exchange luggage. She opened her lips to speak. I shook my head once. Kids' footsteps thundered above. She closed her mouth, pulled the door open, stepped into the snow. I watched her walk to the driver still waiting in the idling SUV at the curb. She climbed in without looking back. Tires spun, found grip, vanished into the white. I shut the door, leaned my forehead against the wood. For the first time all day, my knees buckled. I slid down to the floor, listened to the house settle around me. the heat vents ticking, the kids arguing over hot chocolate toppings. My palms finally started to shake, but nobody was there to see. The dog nudged my shoulder. I stroked his head until my heartbeat slowed. Then I stood, checked the time, homework hour, and walked to the kitchen to make dinner, because mouths still needed feeding and minutes still needed filling, and the clock on the bear kept perfect time, same as ever. I couldn't sleep the night she left in the courier's SUV. I poured the kids cocoa, answered homework questions, pretended the house was only dim because of the storm. At 10 they went to bed, trust still intact. The dog curled by their door like a sentry. I sat at the kitchen table with every light off, just the green glow of the stove clock ticking toward midnight. 12:01, 12:02. Heat clicked, pipes groaned, snow scraped the siding. My chest felt packed with gravel. Around 1 I went looking for answers that weren't guesses. Her quilting room was stripped bare, drawers yanked, fabric gone, rotary cutter missing. But she'd missed one thing. A banker's box pushed under the futon. Dust made my knees creak when I knelt. Inside, manila folders, rubber-banded stacks, a legal pad with half a page torn off. I carried the box to the dining room, flicked on the chandelier, sat down. Top folder held my father's will. Original, blue ink signatures, raised seal. I'd filed probate 3 years ago. The copy of the courthouse had a clerk's stamp, not this seal. I flipped pages and stopped. Last sheet stapled uncrooked. Limited power of attorney naming my wife. Dated 31 days ago. Witnessed by a notary in Orlando. Bottom margin showed a withdrawal authorization. $186,400 transferred from estate escrow for relocation costs. My father's name typed wrong. Herbert Dean Cooper, not Herbert. But the bank had approved it. I ran a thumb over the numbers until they blurred. Under the will lay color photos. Phone prints. Resort pool, palm trees, her in a straw hat kissing the driver. Both wore t-shirts. His, hers. Same set I'd found. Next shot. Them holding a cartoon map, grinning like seniors on spring break. I set each print face down, slow, steady. At the bottom of the box, a bright red folder marked DIVORC packet. Tabs labeled petition, parenting plan, asset schedule. The petition already filled out, only my signature missing. Reason checked. Irreconcilable differences. Custody. Joint, but kids to reside primarily with mother once school year ended. House listed under her proposed column. My retirement fund. Hers. My truck. Hers. Next to each asset, she'd scribbled sticky notes. You keep tools. Auk on fishing boat, like she was doing me a favor. Last page held a predated spousal maintenance order. $1,450 a month for 5 years. Weight settled behind my breastbone cold and solid, more certain than anger. It was recognition, the kind that finally snaps a bone instead of bruising it. I closed the folder, stacked everything neat, carried it to the office. Safe door spun open under my hand like it had been waiting. I set the stack inside, shut the dial, listened to the lock click. Then I opened a new document on the computer, typed out a list. Title. Next STVs. Bullet 1. Call attorney. Bullet 2. Freeze estate account. Bullet 3. Change passwords. Update beneficiaries. Revoke power of attorney. Bullet 4. Protect kids. I saved the file to a flash drive, slid it onto my key ring. At 3 a.m. I made coffee. Black. No mug. I drank from the pot because nothing in the house tasted right anymore. I stared through the patio door. Snow still dropped but lighter now, flakes drifting like lost feathers. I decided the storm was over. Thursday, 8:00 a.m. First light catching icicles, I dialed the firm that probated Dad's will. Receptionist remembered my name. Small town perks. I said I needed the partner, not the junior. 10 minutes later he called back, voice raspy from cigarettes. Morning, Dean. What's wrong? I told him the numbers. I told him about Orlando. Silence on the line grew long enough for me to count heartbeats. "Bring the documents," he said finally. "We'll file a temporary restraining order on the account before noon." I hung up, felt the first plank of solid ground under my boots in days. Next call, the bank manager. I used my calm yard foreman voice. Told him any transactions with that power of attorney were void. Court action pending. He fumbled, said he'd flag the profile. Needed written notice within 24 hours. I promised it. After that, 3 calls to credit bureaus, 1 to the cell provider canceling her line. By 10 my ear throbbed, but each cut severed a rope she thought was tied permanent. Kids were remote learning for the snow day. I fed them pancakes, watched them laugh at a meme, felt the gap between their world and mine stretch tight as piano wire. I kissed their heads, said I had to run to town, back before lunch. They nodded, headphones on. I drove the Silverado slow over packed snow, heater blasting. Windshield wipers squealed on dry glass where defrost reached. 20 minutes later, I was in the attorney's paneled office. Wood smell like a church. We drafted emergency motions, copied IDs, notarized statements. At noon, papers were e-filed. He slid an indemnity agreement across the desk. "If she drained anything else, the bank eats it," he said. I signed. Before I left, he squared the file folder, looked up. "You're sure you want full custody provisions in there?" "Positive. Courts don't hand those out easy." "Then we'll show them the photos, the withdrawals, the timing." She abandoned the kids. He tapped a pen, weighing. "Let her contest it. You've got the day-to-day history." I nodded, left. Back home, the kids were gaming. I made grilled cheese again, set plates by their keyboards. My daughter frowned. "Why's Mom not texting?" "Phone trouble," I said. Truth in half a shell. After lunch I vacuumed, wiped counters, did laundry. Normal rhythm. But each chore stripped her fingerprint off the place. I opened windows, let icy air scour candle stench. The dog followed every step, tail starting to wag again. At 4 the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. Her. Snow boots, eyes swollen, duffel strap cutting her shoulder. No driver in sight. I stepped onto the porch, shut the door behind me. "We need to talk," she said, voice shredded. "Kids are inside." I kept mine low. "Then let me in." "No, say it here." Wind whipped her hair across her mouth. She clutched the duffel tighter. "My card got declined at the hotel. Bank won't tell me anything unless you're present." "What did you do?" "I fixed what you broke." She blinked, confusion tilting toward fear. "I'll contest it. Half that money's mine." "It was my father's. Meant for the kids' college. Judge will see it that way." She stepped forward. I didn't move. Her boots stopped against mine, toes scraping salt. "I can make this messy, Dean." "It already is." "I'm past messy." She looked over my shoulder at the living room window, maybe hoping to spot a kid's face. Curtains were drawn. She lowered her voice. "I filed for divorce. Papers air. In my safe." I read them. "Then you know what's fair." I opened the storm door an inch, handed her a new envelope. "This is what's fair now." She took it, thumbed pages, eyes skimming lines. Relinquishment of property claims, sole custody to me, child support waiver in her favor. For a second relief flashed. Maybe she thought I was handing her freedom cheap. Then she hit the last page. Confession of judgment for estate theft, agreeing to repay every dollar from future earnings. Court ready. Her mouth opened, shut. "I'm not signing." "You already did." I showed her my phone. Photo of her signature from the red divorce packet, lifted onto my new documents by a friendly notary stamp. She gasped. I shrugged. Digital age. She flung the envelope onto the porch. Papers fanned, slapped wood in the wind. "This is fraud. So sue me." I leaned closer. "But the estate already has law enforcement involved. Prosecution's on the table. You walk away today, we don't push criminal. You try for assets, we go full charge. Your choice. Snow stung our faces. Her eyes darted, weighing odds. She whispered, "Where will I go?" "Anywhere you want. Just not here." Tears finally came real, cutting clean tracks. I felt them like rain on a roof. Heard, not entered. She hoisted the duffel, turned. Halfway down the walk she spun back, voice breaking. "Tell them I love them. When you earn the right, you can tell them yourself." She flinched as if slapped. Then she walked to the curb, climbed into a rideshare that must have been waiting 2 houses down. Door thudded, tires crunched away, taillights shrinking until white swallowed red. I exhaled, fog cloud rolling off the porch rail. Then I knelt, gathered the scattered pages, slid them into my coat. Inside, the house was warm. Kids yelled from upstairs, game victory roar. I hung the coat, washed my hands, stared at my reflection in the dark microwave glass. Lines looked deeper, but the eyes were clear. Friday morning judge signed the freeze. Bank manager called. Voice humble. Funds locked. Courier company fired the driver. Turns out he'd used a company card for the resort. They offered to pay restitution. My lawyer smiled. Snow melted to slush. Plow finally scraped our side street. By afternoon, a locksmith installed new deadbolts. I boxed her remaining clothes, labeled DONAT, set them in the garage. Every hour felt wider, like the house was stretching after years cramped. That night, kids and I ate freezer pizza on paper plates. We piled blankets in the living room, watched an old comedy they chose. They laughed hard, mouths greasy with cheese, heads leaning on my shoulders. Dogs snored at our feet. Halfway through the movie, my daughter nudged me. "Dad, you okay?" I thought about lying, then didn't. "No, but I will be." She nodded like that made perfect sense, turned back to the screen. Snow stopped outside, moonlight catching the ice like a field of glass. When credits rolled, I tucked them in. Hall was silent except the bare clock ticking. I stood there a long time, listening to the house breathe without her. It sounded thin, maybe, but steady, like lungs clearing after years of dust. I let that sound fill me until I could breathe along with it. Before bed, I opened the front door, cold rushing in. I stepped onto the porch, looked up at stars sharp as nails. I thought about endings, some loud, some a single piece of paper sliding across a table. Then I shut the door, locked both new bolts, and carried the caring to the bedroom that was mine alone now, heartbeat matching the bare clock, each tick another inch of clean distance. The house sold faster than I thought it would. A young couple from Raleigh handed me a cashier's check and called the warped treehouse charming. So I signed the deed, locked the bare clock inside a moving box, and didn't look back. The kids packed what mattered, her prom photos, his football, the dog's chewed rope, and we left the rest for the real estate truck. Everything else got hauled to Goodwill in 3 trips. That felt lighter than any prayer. I bought a used 24-foot Airstream off a retiree in Wilmington. Dented on the curbside. No leaks. Paid cash. Touted east until ocean filled the windshield and brine cut the diesel smell. We parked at a year-round campground outside Hatteras. Lot 17. Sand on every step. Monthly fee cheaper than the property tax I'd been covering on the house, and the place gave military discount because the owner's son served in '91, same as a college buddy of mine. He shook my hand hard, said Semper Fi, though I was Army. I didn't correct him. First night, the 3 of us lay in narrow bunks, walls creaking in the wind off the water. The dog paced the lino until he worked out trailer sway wasn't an earthquake. Finally, he curled under my bunk. His sigh rattled the vent cover. That's how I knew we'd manage. Not thrive yet, just manage. Mornings start the same now. Alarm at 5. Coffee percolator hissing. Smells like burnt peanuts. I slide the door, step into the dark, sand cold under bare arches. Walk 50 yards through seagrass to the surf line. Rod in hand, headlamp off so stars keep their dignity. Cast into the black. Listen. One gull. One far foghorn. Nothing else. If I'm lucky, a drum hits. If not, I still count it a win because the tide pulls thoughts out of my skull, leaves them floating somewhere past the breakers. By 6:30 sky goes sherbet pink. I reel in, head back to fry whatever bit. Kids wake to fish smell or pancakes, depending. They never complain. Some mornings they join me. More often they sleep. Teenagers need the extra hour. I let them. School bus stops at the campground gate at 7:15. They climb on, earbuds lodge, waves splashing behind them like applause nobody asked for. Daytime I work seasonal maintenance at the marina. Nothing fancy. Patch docks, change light bulbs on the pier, calibrate gas pumps. Boss respects a man who shows up sober and early, so he leaves me alone with the toolbox. Cash under the table helps until the custody hearing finalizes child support, if she ever has income to garnish. Judge granted full placement pending her rehab of life choices. That was the phrase. Kids heard it. They didn't ask what it meant. Mail comes to a P.O. box now. Mostly bills she racked up in both names. I copy each envelope, forward the originals to my lawyer, drop the copies in a shoebox labeled PAP or EVIDNC. Feels tidy. Once a month she emails, subject line blank, body 2 words. Miss them. I move each to a folder called UNREAD and never click. My attorney says that's within my rights. Afternoons the campground empties. Snowbirds in town for groceries. Fishermen out on charters. So I sit under the awning with a paperback. Hemingway first, then a stack of battered Clancy novels somebody left at the laundry hut. Action helps when the brain itches. I read slow, pen marking lines about honor, because I'm retraining myself to spot it. Kids roll back at 3:30, drop packs, race the dog to the beach. Homework later, they promise. Usually they keep it. I grill whatever's cheap from the pier shop. Mackerel, sometimes shark steak if a charter tips me fillets. Evenings dip into 40 degrees. We eat wearing hoodies, ocean roaring commentary. They talk more here. Fewer screens maybe. My daughter jokes I run a therapy trailer. I chuckle, shake ice in a jar of instant tea, let the joke settle without answering. Saturdays we drive inland for groceries and library pickup. Sane road every time. Marsh smell thick where the pavement bows. On the shoulder, there's a mailbox shaped like a bluefish. First trip, I told the kids it looked like it could bite tires. They named it Clarence. Every Saturday someone has to spot Clarence first, or buy the other a gas station candy bar. Ritual beats memory. One Saturday in February, 6 weeks after we moved, the boy asked if we were poor now. I was sliding cans into a wicker basket left by the last tenant. I looked up, met his eyes, same color as hers but flat instead of stormy. I said, "We have heat, gas, food, peace. That's rich enough." He nodded, didn't push. Kids test fences. They're happier when posts don't budge. She found the campground once. Early March, clouds low, wind whipping sand sideways. I spotted the rental sit-in bumping along the track. She stepped out, hair chopped shorter, face hollow. She carried no bag, no gifts, only herself, which used to be enough. I met her halfway to the trailer. She stopped at 10 paces, like invisible wire caught her waist. We stood in swirling grit. She said, "I just want to see them. They're at school. I'll wait." I shook my head. Court order says supervise exchange. You didn't set one. They're my kids, Dean. Voice cracked on the possessive. You traded that word for Disney tickets. My tone stayed calm. Wind took the heat out of it. She wiped sand from her lip, left a smear of pink gloss, old habit dying hard. I got help, she whispered. I'm clean. Good. Notify the judge, schedule the evaluation. Till then don't show up without warning. Tears welled, not dramatic, just overflow. She swallowed, nodded like a soldier hearing orders. Can you tell them I'm trying? When it's more than trying, I will. She exhaled, a sound like brakes releasing. Turned, got back in the car, drove off slow, wheels churning sand that stung my shins. I watched until taillights blurred with blowing grit. The dog whined behind the screen door. I scratched his head, said it was fine. We still had fish to gut. Routine pulled the sting again. Kids asked that night if Mom emailed. I said yes. They didn't ask what she wrote. Everyone carries their own measure of silence. Spring crept in sideways. Less windbite, more gull cries. Marina job ended. Tourists return in May. Real crew takes over. I patched a neighbor's deck for cash, tuned an outboard, taught my girl how to gap spark plugs. She grinned at the first cough of ignition. Engine alive under her hands. Pride looks the same no matter who wears it. The custody hearing came on a Wednesday in April. We drove 2 hours to county seat, kids in clean shirts, me in the suit I'd worn to Dad's funeral. She showed with legal aid counsel, hair neat, eyes clear for a change. Judge reviewed bank records, attendance sheets, the supervised visitation no-shows. He asked the kids where they felt safest. Neither hesitated. Order signed. Permanent placement with me. Her contact contingent on therapy milestones. Gavels don't sound like in movies. Just a wood tap. But that tap cracked the last board under the bridge she'd set on fire. She left the courtroom alone. Back at the trailer, kids celebrated by toasting marshmallows over a hibachi grill because open flames are banned on Campground Beach. Sugar stuck to their cheeks, glowing red under the coil lamp. I sat on the cooler, watched smoke drift to stars, told myself this was good enough. The hole in my chest hadn't closed, but it no longer bled. Scar tissue does its job quiet. June heat melts the tar on the road by 9 a.m. Tourists jam the pier, camera straps thwacking sunburns. To keep bills paid, I take a dawn janitor shift at the aquarium 30 miles up. Mop floors before doors open, then spend an hour staring at the big tank. Sharks gliding circles no wider than instinct. I like their honesty. Mouth open, hunger clear. Kids pick up summer gigs. My boy cleans charter boats for tip money, comes home smelling like diesel and flounder. My girl sells coffee at the kite shop, brings leftovers back for my night reading. In the Airstream we keep chore charts with gummy stars like they were 7 again. Simple systems hold. July 4th, the campground throws a potluck. Everyone lays foil pans on folding tables. Ribs, potato salad, cupcakes bleeding red-blue frosting. Fireworks illegal on the island, so we wave glow sticks and howl at Coast Guard flares somebody smuggled. A neighbor lady named Linda passes a guitar. I haven't touched strings in 20 years, but muscle remembers. I strum American Pie, voice rusty. Kids stare like I pulled a rabbit from a helmet. At this'll be the day that I die. My daughter mouths the words. She learned them somewhere I wasn't paying attention. That hum in my ribs. I think it's what hope feels like when it isn't fragile. Later, hush falls. Waves hiss. Glow sticks fade. Linda hands me a second beer and says, "You look lighter than the day you pulled in." I shrug, sip foam. She's right, but saying it might pop the bubble. I keep quiet. End of August, hurricane skirts the coast. We hitch the trailer, haul inland to a Walmart lot. 3 nights in parking lot neon, rain slamming aluminum like drum solos. Kids play cards. Dog shakes at thunder. By the 3rd morning, the storm moves north. We roll back, find nothing damaged except a snapped clothesline. I tie new rope, admire the clean sweep the wind gave the beach. Storms hurt, but they aerate the sand. Same for people, maybe. She hasn't visited again. Emails come monthly. Proof of therapy attendance attached. I reply with short updates. Kid milestones. No photos yet. Boundaries are easier than forgiveness, but both matter. I'll learn the second after I master the first. Sometimes at night, when kids snore and the dog twitches rabbit dreams, I sit outside on a camp chair, toes digging cool sand. I think about the man I was in that hallway. Diploma glass reflecting 2 strangers on a bed. Rage seems distant, like a war story told by someone tougher. The emptiness she left feels familiar now, like a room I remodeled. Studs the same, walls new color. One of these nights I'll sell the trailer, buy a small plot, pour piers, frame a cabin that doesn't roll when the wind kicks. But not yet. Wheels give me comfort. If ground shakes, I can always move. The important things ride with me. 2 teenagers figuring out how to trust the floor again. A dog who growls at the waves, but never at us. And a bear clock ticking over the stove, still on Central Time because I never changed the battery. It ticks now, steady, unhurried. Some evenings I reach up, stop the second hand with my fingertip, hold it until I feel my own pulse match the stillness. Then I let go. The hand jumps forward, catches up on lost seconds, keeps going. That's all any of us do. Pause, breathe, start again. One click after the next, moving through the dark toward whatever light waits at the edge of the ocean. Nothing more to say. The tide's coming in.